I want to talk about a curious thing happened today when your economic development minister in Alberta used profanity, and I'll tone it down to call them poop heads, to describe BC politicians. And I'm wondering, are things back to that level of tension between the two provinces? I thought things were settling down a little bit.
Well, listen, they have settled down because our premier surrendered unilaterally in the fight with BC when she revoked the wine boycott, even after her NDP colleague in British Columbia, John Horgan, brought in another delay tactic, referring this whole thing to the courts. So I think, that's what we're seeing is a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's bad political theater, Don. And the minister who said that dropped that rhetorical clangor the other day, I think that was part of the theater. I call this a pro-wrestling match between two NDP siblings in BC and Alberta. This is coordinated, it's choreographed, each for their own domestic constituency. But at the end of the day, the Canadian economy is losing out. We're not getting an inch of that pipeline put in the ground.
I mean, last we chatted, you said the government should throttle down gas and oil exports to BC if these persist. Now, I guess Rachel Notley agrees with you. I guess what I'm worried about, Jason, you're not worried. I wonder about this. Is this going to hurt BC enough to make them back down? Won't the victim be the builder, which is Kinder Morgan, because they'll be punished for simply trying to get their expansion going?
Well, listen, here's the deal. Back in 1980, when Pierre Trudeau announced his national energy program that was, as you know, devastating to the Western economy, Premier Peter Lougheed responded with an announcement that he was going to ratchet down oil shipments to the rest of the country, which would have massively spiked gas prices at the pumps. That forced the Trudeau federal Liberals to respond and negotiate and make the NEP less bad than it was. So this is why, since last summer, I've been advocating a similar fight-back strategy, not as a starting point, but as a finishing point. If the New Democrats in Victoria are determined to attack Canada's vital economic interests, this pipeline that represents hundreds of billions of dollars of value, and to undermine the Constitution and the promise of the economic union, there must be serious consequences. And this would result in gas prices in the Lower Mainland going to $3, perhaps $4 a litre. Then perhaps ordinary British Columbians, who, by the way, the majority of whom support this pipeline, would ask their NDP government what they've done to jeopardize their economy.
I'm curious what you thought. My former Calgary Herald colleague, Don Brady, writes in a column today that there's a whiff of Justin Trudeau betrayal in the air. Are you smelling that too? Because it sounds like Trudeau and his ministers are still trying to get this thing through.
Well, how so? I mean, I think the Trudeau government is doing the square root of nothing to advance the construction of this pipeline. This is the same Trudeau government, Don, that after the NDP introduced their Alberta carbon tax, vetoed the Northern Gateway pipeline to Kitimat, imposed arbitrarily a Northern West Coast tanker traffic ban, killed the Energy East pipeline by getting the National Energy Board to do their dirty work, and with it killed the dream of energy independence for Canada, that did nothing to protest Barack Obama's veto of the Keystone XL pipeline, and is now doing nothing to stop John Horgan's New Democrats from blocking Trans Mountain. I think it all comes back to Jerry Butts, Justin Trudeau's right-hand man, his surrogate brain, who said a few years back that he doesn't want an alternate pipeline route, he wants an alternate economy. As Justin said, he wants to phase out the oil sands. I think that's really what they believe.
And do you support the idea, and I believe you actually raised it as well, that you pull away from the carbon tax price or the carbon tax or whatever if you don't get that pipeline, or at least cancel them down the road?
That's exactly my view, Don. So supposedly our Premier Notley made a deal with Justin Trudeau for she would give him a carbon tax. I think the NDP wanted here anyway, ideologically, and he would get a pipeline built. But then he vetoed one pipeline, killed another, doing nothing to build Trans Mountain. So why then did the NDP raise the carbon tax by 50% on the first day of this year? Why are they still committed to raising it by another 67% from $30 to $50 a ton? Why are we rewarding Ottawa that is doing nothing to get us global access and a fair price? We're selling our oil at a little over $30 a barrel to the Americans. They're selling their oil to the world at $60 a barrel. We're subsidizing Donald Trump's economy, and the happiest people are the OPEC dictators because Canadian oil is not competing with them. I think our premier's been very naive. She played all of her cards before the poker game even started.
All right. Jason Kenney, always an opinionated view from you. We appreciate you coming on the show.
And Don, you and I spent a lot of time in this press room here in the Ledge, so good to see you again.
Yes, we did. All right. The Thursday.